Good morning slash afternoon slash evening, everyone. Have you ever met someone who walks into a room and instantly shifts the energy, not by force, but by sheer presence? There's a difference between walking into a room and truly owning it. Some people enter quietly and go unnoticed. Others storm in and dominate. But the rarest kind of presence is the one that commands without needing attention. It's not about being the loudest voice or the boldest outfit. It's about energy, awareness, and the unshakable confidence that speaks long before your mouth does. Owning the room isn't a performance, it's a mindset, and smart women know that the room doesn't belong to the one who stands tallest, but to the one who stands truest. Owning the room starts before you even step into it. It begins with preparation, with intention, and with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who she is and what she brings to the table. You don't chase approval, you project certainty. People can feel it, your body language, your tone, your eye contact. These are your opening lines before you say a single word. There's a silent authority in someone who's deeply grounded in herself. She doesn't flinch when questioned, doesn't shrink when challenged, and doesn't inflate to impress. She just is, and that authenticity makes people stop and listen. You might think you need to be extroverted, loud, or charismatic to own a room. But that's a myth. True power isn't about volume, it's about clarity. It's about knowing your value, even when no one else in the room sees it yet. It's walking into a meeting, an interview, or a negotiation with the quiet certainty that you belong there not because you were invited, but because you earned your place, and if you weren't invited, you show up anyway because you understand that space is not given, it's taken, claimed, owned. Smart women don't compete for attention, they command respect. They don't over-explain, over-apologize, or overcompensate. They know that every word, every pause, every gesture sends a message, and they choose those messages with precision. They know that power is presence. It's in how you sit, how you listen, how you say no, with firmness and grace. It's knowing that you can shut down a room without raising your voice, just by speaking with unshakable conviction. Owning the room is also about emotional intelligence. It's reading the space, understanding the mood, and adapting without losing yourself. It's knowing when to lean in and when to lean back. It's being persuasive, not pushy, assertive, not aggressive. It's about speaking with clarity and strength, but also knowing when silence carries more weight. It's the self-control to let others speak, and the self-trust to take the floor when it counts. Have you ever seen a woman take a deep breath, pause for a moment, and then speak, and suddenly the entire room leans in? That's presence, that's power. It's not theatrical, it's not fake. It's real, grounded energy that pulls others toward her, not with force, but with gravity. She doesn't perform confidence, she embodies it. And that kind of presence comes from one place, inner work. You don't build this in a single day. It's the result of choosing courage over comfort, over and over again. It's learning through failure, showing up when it's inconvenient, and growing in the moments no one applauds. The woman who owns the room is the woman who has owned her story, every part of it, the parts she's proud of and the parts that nearly broke her. She walks in whole, she walks in real, and that's why people trust her. That's why people follow her. It's not about ego, it's about service. When you own the room, you're not just taking space for yourself. You're creating space for others to rise too. You elevate the standard, you shift the energy, you become the example. And smart women understand that true leadership is not about being in control. It's about being in command of yourself. When you are anchored in your values, clear in your message, and unapologetic in your presence, there is nothing more magnetic. So, whether you're walking into a boardroom, a classroom, or a room full of strangers, don't just be in the space. Don't just take a seat at the table. Bring the table to life. Bring your experience, your fire, your insight, and your calm. Bring your truth, because the woman who owns the room doesn't need permission. She gives herself authority, and the world rises to meet her. Stand guard at the door of your mind, written with a powerful, professional tone, free of subheadings or conclusions, and infused with emotional depth and realism. Your mind is your most sacred space. It is where your confidence is born, where your doubts grow, where your future is shaped long before it ever arrives. And yet, so many people leave the door wide open, letting in opinions that don't serve them, narratives that break them, and noise that drowns out their own truth. Smart women know better. They know that if you don't stand guard at the door of your mind, someone else will walk in and decorate it with fear, insecurity, and limitation. And before you know it, you'll start living a life that doesn't even belong to you. You don't leave your home unlocked at night. So why leave your mind unprotected during the day? Every word you hear, every image you see, every conversation you entertain, those things don't just pass through you. They shape you, they become your beliefs, your boundaries, your self-talk. It's subtle. You hear someone say you're too emotional, and suddenly you start questioning your instincts. You're told you're too ambitious, and suddenly you shrink in meetings. You scroll through images of perfection and start feeling like you're always behind. What seems harmless in the moment becomes harmful in the long run. Guarding your mind is not about shutting the world out. It's about becoming intentional with what you allow in. It means choosing your influences with care. It means understanding that the people you spend time with aren't just companions. They're contributors to your thought patterns. If someone constantly makes you question your worth, that's not just how they are. That's a threat to your mental environment. If the media you consume leaves you anxious, depleted, or constantly comparing yourself, that's not entertainment. It's erosion. You are either feeding your strength or feeding your fear. There is no neutral. It's easy to underestimate the power of repetition, but repetition is how the mind learns. What you hear enough, you begin to believe. That's why it's not vanity to affirm yourself, to speak life into your goals, to remind yourself of your worth. It's mental hygiene. It's self-leadership, and if you don't lead your own thoughts, someone else will do it for you, and they won't always have your best interest in mind. Standing guard at the door of your mind also means watching your own internal voice. Not everything you think is true, not every fear is a fact. That inner critic, it's loud, persuasive, and relentless, but it's not a prophet, it's a pattern, and patterns can be broken. The difference between a woman who believes in herself and one who doesn't isn't that one has fewer doubts. It's that she has trained her mind to listen to a higher voice, a voice of truth, a voice of discipline, a voice of compassion. It takes work. Mental strength isn't inherited, it's built. It's built in early mornings when you don't feel like showing up, but you do anyway. It's built in hard conversations where you speak your truth even when your voice shakes. It's built in the silence of your own thoughts, where you learn to choose clarity over chaos, truth over noise, growth over comfort. The mind is a garden. If you don't plant purposefully, the weeds will plant themselves. Smart women know they don't have to entertain every opinion. Not every voice deserves a microphone in your life. You can respect someone and still reject their influence. You can love someone and still limit their access. Boundaries are not walls, they're gates, and you get to decide who walks through them. You get to decide what ideas are allowed to live inside your head. You get to decide what narratives get to write your future. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who has learned to protect her peace, because when your mind is clear, your path becomes clearer. When your mind is strong, your decisions become bolder. When your mind is free from the grip of self-doubt, you don't just survive, you lead. And leadership starts with the thoughts you allow to take root in your head and in your heart. The world will try to tell you who you are, what you're capable of, and where you belong. But if you stand guard at the door of your mind, you'll be able to hear those voices and not absorb them. You'll be able to rise above the noise and live by design, not by default, because your mind, it's your most powerful weapon. Protect it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Use empathy as armor, not a weakness. Written in a professional and emotionally resonant tone without subheadings or a conclusion. Empathy is not soft. It is not weakness. It is not the thing you fall back on when strength fails. It is strength in its purest, most strategic form. Empathy is the ability to feel deeply while thinking clearly. It's reading what isn't said, understanding what's behind the anger, and responding to the pain that hides behind pride. It's not just about being kind. It's about being conscious, being aware, being emotionally intelligent enough to lead, connect, and influence without leaving destruction behind. Smart women don't dismiss empathy, they wield it. They don't flinch at emotion, they study it. They don't suppress their instincts, they sharpen them. Empathy becomes their armor, not because it keeps them soft, but because it makes them aware, alert to nuance, sensitive to dynamics, and capable of reaching people on levels power alone never could. It's easy to demand respect with force. It's rare to earn it through understanding. But the women who lead with empathy, they're the ones people follow because they want to, not because they have to. Empathy gives you access to truth. When you're attuned to the emotions in the room, you start hearing the real conversation, the one underneath the words. You pick up on the tension, the hesitation, the fear. You start seeing what's driving people, not just what they're doing. And in every boardroom, every negotiation, every relationship, that is your advantage, that is your edge. It's how you make people feel safe enough to be honest, calm enough to stay in dialogue, and seen enough to show up fully. That's not weakness, that's power disguised as presence. It takes courage to lead with empathy. It means choosing to stay open when it's easier to shut down. It means choosing curiosity over judgment, even when you've been hurt. It means having enough control over your own emotions that you don't react out of ego, but respond with intention. Empathy doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It doesn't mean absorbing someone else's pain as your own. It doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means understanding, without abandoning yourself in the process. That's the armor. Empathy doesn't make you fragile. It makes you precise. It gives you the language to de-escalate conflict, the insight to manage difficult personalities, and the discernment to separate the message from the mess. It allows you to see through behavior to the human underneath. That clarity makes you powerful in situations where others lose control. When you can stay calm in chaos, respond with grace in tension, and lead with intention under pressure, people take notice. That kind of composure. That's not born of detachment, that's born of emotional discipline, of deep empathy. But make no mistake, empathy must be managed, it must be paired with boundaries. A woman who uses empathy without boundaries becomes a martyr. A woman who pairs empathy with strength becomes a force. When you understand someone's emotions, you're not required to carry them. You're allowed to say, I see your pain, but I will not drown in it. You're allowed to say, I hear your anger, but I won't take it personally. You're allowed to be open-hearted without being wide open. Empathy lets you connect without collapsing. In high-stakes environments, empathy becomes the leadership skill that separates the competent from the exceptional. Anyone can deliver orders, but the leaders who transform organizations, teams, and cultures, they listen, they see people, they adapt, and that starts with empathy. It starts with being able to understand what your people are going through without excusing underperformance. It means you can challenge someone and support them at the same time. That balance is what builds loyalty. That's what builds trust. In your personal life, empathy becomes the bridge, not just to others, but to yourself. When you can hold space for your own emotions without judging them, you learn to hold space for others too. When you can understand your own triggers, you stop projecting them. When you treat your own vulnerability with dignity, you begin to see the strength in others' pain as well. That's how empathy moves from being something you feel to something you use, as a tool, as a compass, as armor. It's easy to become hard in a world that demands performance. But smart women don't trade their empathy for power. They integrate it. They know that being emotionally intelligent doesn't make you less strategic. It makes you more effective. They don't flinch at feelings. They manage them. They don't avoid conflict. They navigate it. And when the world throws fire, they don't melt. They respond with steel, not in their hearts, but in their capacity to understand. Empathy is not a step backward. It's a step deeper. Deeper into connection, deeper into influence, deeper into leadership. And when you use it wisely, with clarity and boundaries intact, it becomes the most protective, effective, and human armor you will ever wear. Know when to speak and when to stay silent, crafted in a powerful, reflective, and emotionally intelligent tone. There are no subheadings or conclusions, as requested. There is a rare kind of strength in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. It's not about being quiet out of fear or speaking to fill space. It's about timing, wisdom, and control. The smartest women understand that their voice holds power, and power is most effective when used with intention. Not everything requires a reaction. Not every moment needs your opinion, and not every silence is empty. Sometimes silence is a strategy. Sometimes silence is survival. Knowing when to speak is not just about having something to say, it's about knowing that what you say carries weight. It's about being aware of the room, the tone, the context. It's understanding that words can heal, cut, reveal, or destroy. The wrong words, said at the wrong time, can dismantle trust. The right words, offered at the right moment, can change the entire direction of a conversation or a life. But it's not always about having the answers. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence can be a shield. In the heat of conflict, when tempers flare and egos rise, silence gives you space to breathe, to think, to choose your response rather than reacting on impulse. There's immense power in restraint. The woman who doesn't rush to defend herself every time she's misunderstood. She knows who she is. The woman who doesn't feel the need to dominate every conversation. She's already in command. You don't have to over-explain when your presence speaks louder than your words. You don't have to convince people when your actions make it clear. But when it is time to speak, speak. Speak with purpose. Speak with clarity. Don't dilute your message to make others comfortable. Don't shrink your truth to fit into smaller spaces. When something needs to be said, say it with the full weight of your truth. And say it with calm, not chaos. There is a difference between speaking to be heard and speaking to be understood. Smart women aim for the latter. They don't just unload their thoughts, they communicate. And they choose words that move things forward, not just stir the air. There's a certain maturity in waiting, in listening fully before responding, in pausing to read the room, the energy, the intentions behind the words. When you wait, you learn, you gather information, you pick up on what others miss, and that patience gives you an edge. While everyone else is rushing to speak, trying to prove something, you are calculating, observing, choosing. And when you finally do speak, people listen, because they've learned you don't waste words. Your silence has value, so your voice carries more. We live in a world that often confuses loud with strong, constant expression with leadership. But volume doesn't equal influence. You don't have to dominate the space to hold power in it. In fact, the most magnetic people often speak less. They don't interrupt. They don't compete. They listen deeply, and when they respond, it's with insight, not noise. They speak with intention, not insecurity. That level of self-calm and doesn't come from ego. It comes from self-trust, and that trust is earned by knowing your voice isn't fragile. It doesn't need to shout to matter. And sometimes, silence is the loudest protest. Sometimes, silence is the clearest boundary. When you walk away from a toxic conversation without defending yourself, that is a message. When you choose not to dignify disrespect with a response, that is a statement. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves your explanation. There is a line between assertiveness and emotional labor, and smart women know exactly where that line lies. You don't owe the world constant commentary. You owe yourself peace. There's courage in pausing. There's strength in knowing your voice is a tool, not a weapon, that it can be used to build or to destroy. But once it's out, it can't be taken back. And so you wait, you think, you breathe, and then, when the time is right, you say what needs to be said, with precision, with courage, and with full presence. To know when to speak is to know yourself. To know what matters, what's noise, what's ego, and what's truth. It's not about being timid, it's about being wise and wisdom that never yells. Prepare like a pro. Show up like a boss, written in a sharp, confident, emotionally grounded tone with no subheadings or conclusion. Success rarely belongs to the most talented person in the room. More often, it belongs to the one who was the most prepared. The one who studied when no one was watching. The one who anticipated the questions, rehearsed the answers, mastered the material, and walked in ready to own it. Smart women don't leave success up to chance. They don't hope it all works out. They prepare like pros, deliberately, relentlessly, and without apology. And when it's time to show up, they don't shrink. They step in, take up space, and make it undeniable that they belong. Preparation isn't just about doing the work, it's about doing it with focus, discipline, and excellence. It's reading the room before you enter it, knowing your value before someone questions it, understanding your strengths and sharpening your edge before anyone else even sees the blade. When you're prepared, you're not playing defense, you're not reacting, you're leading, you have answers, you have clarity. You don't panic under pressure because you've already rehearsed the worst case scenario and planned past it. This level of readiness doesn't happen overnight. It's built in the quiet hours, in the moments when no one is clapping for you. It's in the second draft you rewrite because the first one wasn't good enough. It's in the extra hour you spend researching when others say, "That's good enough." It's in the way you walk into a meeting with a notebook full of strategy while others show up with excuses. That discipline, that hunger, that relentless refusal to wing it, that's what separates professionals from amateurs. That's what makes your presence a statement before you ever open your mouth, but preparation alone isn't enough. You also have to show up, fully, fiercely, without apology. You can do all the work behind the scenes, but if you hesitate when the spotlight hits you, the world won't know what you're capable of. You have to walk into the room like your preparation is a weapon, because it is. It's what lets you speak with conviction, move with confidence, and handle curveballs with calm. When you've done the work, you don't have to fake anything. You don't need to overcompensate or try to impress. You just deliver because you're ready. Showing up like a boss doesn't mean being loud or flashy. It means being solid, collected, clear. It's in how you carry yourself, how you respond under pressure, how you command attention without demanding it. It's the quiet confidence that makes people listen when you speak, the poise that makes others trust you, the readiness that allows you to pivot, lead, or hold your ground when things shift. Smart women don't perform, they present. They don't bluff their way through, they've done the work and it shows. And still, showing up like a boss is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about owning your space even when your hands are shaking. It's about leading even when you're unsure. It's about knowing that failure is not the opposite of preparation. It's part of it. You may stumble, you may get tested, but if you've trained your mind to be resilient, your confidence doesn't disappear with one mistake. You regroup, you reset, you keep moving forward with power and grace. Preparation and presence feed each other. When you prepare, you earn your confidence. When you show up, you reinforce your preparation. And over time, that cycle turns into something powerful, reputation. People start to notice. They see that when you walk in, things shift. They trust your leadership. They respect your delivery. They remember your name. Not because you demanded recognition, but because you earned it. You don't rise by accident. You rise by design, and design requires preparation, discipline, and the courage to show up again and again, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching, even when no one gives you the credit yet. Smart women aren't waiting to be discovered. They're preparing for their moment long before it arrives. So when it does come, they're not surprised, they're not nervous, they're ready, they prepared like pros. And now, they show up like bosses, never apologize for being strong, written in a confident, emotionally compelling tone without subheadings or a conclusion. Strength makes people uncomfortable, especially when it shows up in a woman. The kind of strength that doesn't flinch when challenged, the kind that speaks up when silence would be easier, the kind that doesn't beg for approval, doesn't shrink in the presence of ego, doesn't water itself down just to make others feel more secure. And for that, strong women are often asked to apologize, not always in words, but in the subtle ways people respond, the discomfort, the labels, the whispers that say, "Who does she think she is?" But here's the truth, you don't owe anyone an apology for your power. Not today, not ever. Being strong doesn't mean you're hard. It means you've been through things that tried to break you, and you're still standing. It means you've learned how to lead yourself before expecting anyone else to follow. It means you've fought for your place at tables you weren't invited to, and spoke truth in rooms that didn't want to hear it, and somewhere along the way, you stopped waiting for permission to be who you are. You built your voice, you owned your presence, and that made people nervous, because the moment you stopped asking for validation was the moment you became unshakable. Strength isn't loud. It's not arrogance or aggression. It's not the need to prove something. Real strength is quiet certainty. It's showing up with grace under fire. It's refusing to break when life pushes back. It's knowing your boundaries and enforcing them without guilt. It's turning pain into purpose, rejection into redirection, and fear into focus. People see the outside, your confidence, your poise, your success. But they don't see the work it took to get here. They don't see the nights you cried, the choices you made, the battles you fought alone. And because they don't see the weight, they assume the walk is easy, but your strength didn't come from comfort. It came from struggle. It came from hearing no and moving forward anyway. It came from being told to settle and refusing. It came from the moments you wanted to break down but chose to rise instead. That's the kind of strength you never apologize for, because it's not just your protection. It's your power. It's the thing that makes you dependable, unstoppable, unforgettable. So when someone tells you to tone it down, take up less space, or not be too much, what they're really saying is, your strength reminds me of my own insecurities. Let them feel it. Let them sit with it. Your strength is not a problem to fix. It's a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see their own reflection. You don't have to soften yourself to fit into fragile places. You don't have to lower your volume to meet someone else's comfort zone. You don't have to justify your ambition, your clarity, or your voice. The people who are meant to walk with you will rise to meet your energy. They won't shrink when you shine. They'll glow with you. There is nothing more threatening to the status quo than a woman who knows her power. A woman who can say no without apology. A woman who walks away when something disrespects her worth. A woman who leads without trying to please. That kind of strength changes rooms. It changes outcomes. It changes lives, but it also draws resistance. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will like you, and that's fine. Strength was never built for popularity. It was built for impact. You are allowed to be strong and still feel. You are allowed to be powerful and still be human. Strength doesn't mean you don't cry. It means you don't stay down. It means you allow yourself to feel, but you don't let your emotions make your decisions. It means you stand in the middle of the storm and still know who you are. That kind of inner stability, that's what makes people listen when you speak. That's what makes you unforgettable. So no, you don't apologize for being strong. You don't apologize for knowing what you bring to the table. You don't apologize for walking in your purpose, setting high standards, or choosing yourself after years of putting others first. You've earned your strength. Through every chapter, every scar, every lesson that taught you how to lead, how to endure, and how to rise, let it show, let it shine, let it speak without explanation. Because when a woman owns her strength, she doesn't just change her life. She gives every woman watching her the permission to do the same.